Alrighty, welcome back everybody to the 2-month mark of the JavaScript session for Tech Bytes, that being week 8. We are glad to see you guys are returning, and without any further ado, let's get started. You guys know who I am. My name is Ryan Siddiqui, a rising senior at James B. Conant High School. I've made a dozen different websites, like to make apps for the App Store. If you want to check out some of my cool projects, go to my website at ryansiddiqui.com. And now my partner, Andrew.
Thank you for the introduction, Rayon. My name is Andrew Choi. I'm going to be a freshman at Purdue University real soon. I'm also into coding. I've made a few of them, projects with it. You can check out my website, andrewchoi.info, and let's go on to that lesson for today.
All right, so some fresh updates for the JavaScript session in terms of course movement, and then some new typing terms.
Yes, so remember the thing I've been saying for a while, soon to be freshman at Purdue University. Well, it turns out that I will be attending Purdue University soon, and I will not have time to attend these lessons and educate you on the goings about of the computer science. So it's been fun being with you all, but after teen trivia next week, if you're involved in that, I will be gone. If you're not into teen trivia, I will be in the next Tech Bytes lesson, and after that I will sadly not be attending. So I hope my replacement and Ryan will hopefully be able to do just as well as it is with me here.
Yep.
So yeah.
Andrew, you'll be with us for next Monday, Hack Central as well, so we gotta.
Yes, I will be there as well.
So if you're interested into learning something about machine learning, don't want to get too much in depth about that right now, but if you've seen our last one, Hack Central, next Monday, learn about image classification and generally classification if you're interested in that. So update number 2. So remember how in the Python session we talked about the new course is going to be called Intro to Programming? Well, this course of the JavaScript session is now going to be under web development. On the library's website, we will put the link in the Google Classroom, just like we will for the Python one, so that you can easily access the link. And just like you did in May, sign up for these courses. Just be sure to sign up under the library, under your name, email, all that good information, to be sure to get the Zoom link along with access to our classroom and all that, so that you're up to date and learning new things.
All right, so today, one of the things we'll be learning right now are parameters, which are basically inputs to routines or functions you might have in your program. For instance, we have a multiplication function right here. We have 2 inputs, x and y. We pass them into this function, and we get the product or the result when we multiply those 2 numbers. So we can pick any 2 inputs we want. We are choosing 4 and 2. 4 times 2 is in fact 8. So using the variety of different inputs, we can get a different output for whatever input we decide. And using that, we can abstract our code and simplify it.
Yep, and we will see this in action in a little bit. All in all, the main idea of parameters, guys, it's a way to abstract. You might hear people like at the higher level saying abstraction is key. Well, this is one of the steps you can take towards abstracting and making your functions reusable, in the sense that your function isn't just for one purpose. You can have multiple purposes. All right, so remember how we talked about arrays and lists in the Python? Well, syntax is different for the JavaScript language. Let's see how that is. Well, we know how to declare variables, that is var, the variable name, but instead we're going to be holding an array now. Well, it's a bit similar because we still have the bracket. If we're holding a string, the type string, we're going to put quotation marks like we did on the right for the names, like we have Johnny, Patel, and Sally. And like we did in Python, remember how we were able to add values to our list by using .append? Well, in JavaScript, it's a bit different. It's called .push. We're pushing a new variable value into our list, and it's done similarly. And just like in Python, how we can access certain index and certain positions, we can do that with JavaScript as well. And how do we do that? One of the best ways we do that through is using loops. As we can see to the right, we have one type of loop, which we've discussed loops in last week's session. And simply we have one loop right here, which is iterating over each index, printing out the value at each area. So we can see that Johnny Patel is being printed out. And without any further ado, I think it's time to put these concepts into application now. So if everybody can open up the website, jsfiddle.net, and we can get started. As always, guys, I highly recommend that you've not by now created an account so that you can save all your fiddles. And if you have any questions, you can just post it on the classroom with a link to your fiddle, and Andrew and I could debug it and help you. But I'm just going to name my fiddle JavaScript Tech Bytes Week 8. And if we run it, we see that nothing's happening, obviously. All right, so if everybody can please confirm that they're on the website, and we can get started. Yep, so just let us know in the chat if you're on the website. All right. Yes, here is the link to the website as well.
Excuse me a moment, I have to put something away.
Yep. All right, so it looks like everybody is back. Pranav, the classroom code one more time. Sure, I believe I dropped it. Here it is. We will drop in the chat again. And guys, we will be continuing the same Google Classroom for our future courses of Intro to Programming and Web Development, so you can keep track of the old archives and old posts we have made there as well. All right, so let's get started. So how about we make something using parameters? First, how about we focus on the idea of parameters, and we ask the user for an input, and we'll compare to see which number is larger. Or how about we put into example the multiplication example, and we'll return the product of two numbers which the user inputs. So how about we get some HTML going with some structuring? We create a button. We'll make an on click for the function. We'll say initiate. Let's call it initiate. And then we'll remember the greater than sign. And we'll just, for the text, I'll call this button start. And if we run it, we see the button is there, but it's not going to do anything because, oh yeah, we forgot to actually define the function. So how about we hop on over to our JavaScript.
All right, Redeemus says, can you wait? I guess we will. Always feel free to tell us if we're going too fast.
Yep, so we're basically just creating a button, guys, which we've done in the past 3 weeks. Just creating a button, which we have an onClick. Remember, this is the function which will be called when we click our button. And what we want to do is ask the user for an input of 2 numbers. And then with those 2 numbers, we'll return the product, aka multiplying the 2 numbers together. And then we can display it using the DOM. All right, so now that we have that, how about we create an ID? Remember how we last week discussed the document object model and how we can use our JavaScript to manipulate our HTML? How about we display the product in a paragraph format? So how about we do something like, we'll create a P for a paragraph ID, and then ID. We'll set this ID equal to product display. And then remember, end bracket. There we go. So now here we will output the product of the user's 2 numbers. All right. So now we actually have to code some of the JavaScript behind all this. How do we do that? Well, we have to first make our function. So function, remember whatever you call your function up here, open and parentheses with the open and curly brackets. Now we want to ask the user for 2 numbers. So how about we prompt them 2 times instead of going through substringing right now? So how about we do variable? Well, we remember variables hold values. So we'll call this hold number 1. We'll set this equal to a prompt in order to ask the user for a number. We'll say, what is the first number? Now, we could simply just copy and paste this line for our second number. So let's say hold our number 2, and then we'll just change this to what is the second number. Let you guys catch up to that. Now, you don't have to do this just to make sure that our code is functioning properly. We can just log the 2 numbers which the user inputted to see everything is working fine. So again, you have to do this part. And if we run this, I'm just gonna, while you guys copy this down, just seeing if this works. So if I put 1 and I put 2, we should see in the console 1 and 2, and there we go. All right, so now we have the first number and the second number. But where do parameters come into play? Well, we essentially are going to be passing these 2 numbers into a function which will return to us the product. But we can't put a function inside a function, well, not at least right now. That's a little rare right now. So how about we create a function? So we'll call this function give product. Open parenthesis, close parenthesis. Remember, open and curly brackets. Now we want to take in 2 parameters because to get the product, we need 2 numbers at least, right? So we have to enter some type of parameters. So we'll say as a parameter for our first number, we'll represent it as first num, and then our second number as comma, and then second num, like so. Now we actually have to do the multiplication. Well, how about we create a variable to hold the product? So we'll create a variable called product, set that equal to multiplying the 2 numbers out. So we'll do first num, shift 8 to get that multiplication symbol, multiply by second num. Now we have to use the DOM remember the document object model, in order to manipulate our HTML so that we can display our product in the web page, in this web area to the right. So remember that really long piece of code, that long line, the document.get element by ID? Well, we got to type that out. So how about we start? So document dot get capital E element, capital B by, capital I ID, open and close parentheses, open and close quotation marks, whatever you called your ID, because that's the ID we're manipulating, paste that in there. At the end of the parenthesis, we do dot inner HTML, HTML in all caps, equals, phew, we got that line typed out. Now we can put whatever we want to display. So we'll just say product is like such with that close parenthesis and then plus the variable holding the product. Now, if I run this, for instance, right now, we'll see that the computer is asking me for two numbers, but nothing's happening. Why is that? Well, that's because we're not passing our whole number variables into the function give product. How do we do that? It's super simple. Simply go back to our initiate function, hit enter, some clear spacing. Now we have to actually call our give product function. How do we do that? We do give. We call the function literally give product. But remember how in the past we could simply just call the function? Well, remember, we have parameters now. So we have to pass two values into our function. How do we do that? We simply just write the name of our variables, like so. And now, if you see a correlation, if I can, let's see if I can write on my screen. Right here, these are correlated, and these two variables are correlated. So hold number one and first num. So first num is going to hold whatever value hold number one has. So say my first number I inputted was 8. Then first num would represent 8, and then say my second number was 2. Second num would represent 2. So 8 times 2, we should get the product is 16. So that correlation is key, recognizing how we are able to pass in values as parameters. Now, if we actually execute our code, hit the run button, hit start, say the first number we put in is 15, second number is 4, we should see in our product display, product is 60, and voila, there we go. We can see that we passed in our inputs as parameters. We did some multiplication to get a product, and we used the DOM to display that product. All right, and give me 1 second. Let me just sign in to save this fiddle so that I can drop it in the Google Classroom later on. But apparently I was not signed in. All right. All right, so just for purposes of being able to drop the link, I'm going to open up a new fiddle now, and I'll let Andrew go ahead and we'll talk about arrays.
Right, let's talk about arrays. So,
but 1 second. Riddim still needs the screen up. And guys, if you fall behind or something doesn't work, we will drop this link in the classroom for you to check out. Without any further ado, let's talk about arrays.
all right, so arrays, much like last time, and if you've been to the Python session, we will be doing this in a format pretty similar in that we are going to loop through an array So to make this easy on us, let's actually just copy the button and the HTML. We'll rename some stuff to make it a little more cleaner, but paste. That's weird.
Here, let me do it for my end.
All right, it does not seem I can copy and paste on my end, but oh well. So we are going to rename some stuff right now. So instead of product display, let's actually just make this a little easy on us. And I'm having trouble deleting this part. All right, display. And if we run it real quick right now, we have a nice template because there is nothing we can actually, there's no actual JavaScript. We just have our HTML, and that means we are ready to actually do the JavaScript. So much like last time, we are going to create that initiate function. We are going to also take, I'm sorry, someone's like calling. Sorry, I just heard something on where I'm, excuse me. So next we are going to actually make that array. We'll call it, we'll just call it list for now. Call it num list. And let's just give it 5, 4, and 3. Next, we're going to actually loop through this array via an actual loop. So for, trying to remember how we actually do this in JavaScript. For now, let's actually make this a little easy on us and actually just see if we can get it and just use a regular full loop. Just make the var over here. Lower than 10 and I++. And just to make sure that we did this right, let's actually print this out real quick. There should be, yeah, let me run this real quick. Should be in the console. And indeed, we are getting 0 through 9. Now, what we are going to do now is let's do some things with our for loop and array. For instance, we can add numbers to the list right now. So let's do that right now. Num list dot, yes, it's a push, and we will be using the I variable. So we will be doing the numbers 0 to 9 and adding them sequentially to the num list. Now, of course, we can't actually check right now because we don't have a way of printing it out. So let's actually do that right now. So Ryan, can you actually make, see if you could print out all the items in the list?
Yeah. Oh. Why is this not minimum? That's weird. Okay. So, all right. So now that we are actually, hold on one second. There we go. Okay. So we initially have these values of 5, 4, and 3. but we're adding 0 through 9 as well into our list. So if we want to see this in action, there we go. All right. So how about we do something? We'll print out our, okay, yeah. So how about we just check the length of our list beforehand and afterhand to see if it's actually changing. So we'll just do num list, and then there's a short command called .length to see the length of our actual list. We'll place it before and after the for loop to compare if the for loop's actually doing something. So if we hit start, and then we hit start, we can see that before the for loop ran, our list was at a length of 3 items, and then after, it was at a length of 13 items. So now, how about we use the DOM to actually represent what's inside of our list? So we have to add all of our values into a string to hold them. So how about we do something like this? So we have to use another for loop. And to make some abstraction, how about we create a new function to do this? So we'll do function display list, open close parenthesis, open and close curly brackets like such. All right, and then once we have this new function of display list, we have to loop over our list so that we can add it all to a string variable. So how about we create a string variable called var hold list items, and we'll just not even initialize it with the value. We're just gonna initialize it like such. And now we gotta loop over the list. So how about we do for var, we'll just say x equals 0. X is less than the length of the list because we want to make sure that we go over each value inside the list. So then we can use .length like we did before, and then x plus plus, like such. Now we want to add each value onto our hold list items. How do we do that? Well, it's a pretty simple way with JavaScript allows us to do. We just do hold list items, the variable name, and then we do it equals that variable hold list items plus we'll do a space just to make it look cleaner, and then we got to get that number in that specific index in the list. Well, how do we do that? We just simply do num list at the position of x. This way, guys, we're able to have all of the content of our list in one variable. And if we want to check if that works, we can simply just log it onto the console. And if I run it, nothing will happen, guys, because remember, we're not calling this function. So remember, we have to call this function after the for loop, after we input more values. So if I run this now, hit start, head on over to the console. Well, that is because it's not a global variable. So if you, to make this, just put it simply, global and local variable, guys, we will talk about this. I'm assuming we'll do a lesson on this next week more. But basically, if this variable is being defined inside of this function, it's only accessible inside of this function. I can't use num list anywhere else. And once so since this variable is only accessible inside the initiate function, I can't really use it in this function. But one way which we can avoid that problem is using parameters. So how about we have a parameter right here? We'll just say, call it number list, and replace num list variable with number list. And now we got to pass that array parameter. So we'll pass num list so that we have the content of numList accessible as a parameter, but in this case, it's just going to be called numberList. But remember, the key is that numList is the same thing as numberList, where we are just passing numList as a parameter into our function. All right, so now how about we run this? Hit start. Oh, yes. Remember to replace numList wherever it is with numberList because that's the new parameter name. Now if we run this, we're able to see all of the values of our list. There we go. I believe to make this look nicer, we have a undefined variable and undefined. So if we do this, change this language really quickly. Yep, and we will give you guys a quick minute. That's where we're taking a quick break. There we go. Okay. So the problem was that we did not initialize our hold list items variable with some empty quotation marks. That is why we were being outputted in the console with undefined. All right. So once we have that, guys, basically before we run the code and see all work, and how about we quickly explain this? So we have our numList variable holding an array of different numbers in an array. And then we're using this for loop to add the digits 0 through 9 inside of the array. Now we have a 13-digit array. Then we're calling this display list function, passing our array as a parameter. And then we're using that array in a for loop to see how many times we have to run the for loop. And then we're just holding all the digits of the array in a string variable called hold list items. Now with our final step is, guys, to simply display this using the DOM. So if for simple purposes, how about we hop on over to our old fiddle, grab that really long line of code, change the display tag, and we'll set it equal to, we'll say content of array, and add that variable. So if I run this, and voila, we can see all of the content of our array being printed out, being outputted onto our, and displayed with our DOM. And this, guys, this fiddle will be posted on our classroom as always. If you have any questions, we will be glad to answer them right now. All right. The code will be posted very soon after this class ends, so you'll be able to find it on our classroom. And yeah, so for next week, guys, we are almost done with learning all the fundamentals for our smooth transition to typing out code. Next, we will be doing a few more small topics such as booleans and discussing some more advanced variables, such as that idea of local and global variables. And that is pretty much it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, learned some more details about parameters, and enjoy the lesson. We hope you guys will join us for next week as well as we go into our next course. Remember, it's called Web Development. We'll post a sign-up link on the classroom. Have a great week. Take care. And if you want to stop by at our Hack Central next Monday, be sure to do that too. And we'll catch you guys next Wednesday. See ya.
Thank you for coming.